G'day guys, I decided to do a part 2 to my Christmas special, and since I spoke about Silent Night Deadly Night and how even though it was an above average slasher film in several areas, it was still a bit flat, slow, and not much of a campy funny experience. Well, luckily, some bastard decided to try and go out and make a sequel to that movie, which exactly ended up being that thing. The keyword is try.
Ho 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 ho, delightfully devilish, Seymour.
Yes everybody, welcome back to Delightfully Devilish, the show where we discuss films that all once meet the criteria of being the good, the bad, and the ugly. I'm your host Jukebox Harry, and today we're looking at a terrible slasher movie sequel, which is also the basis of one of the biggest internet memes of all time. Silent Night Deadly Night Part 2 is a 1987 slasher film which just barely qualifies as a sequel to Silent Night Deadly Night. Director Lee Harry was told to take the footage from the first movie and edit it to make it seem like an entirely new movie where some random lunatic in a mental asylum was raving about stories. Now, instead he decided to pressure them to get a budget together and try to film some new footage, which just barely ended up being enough. As a result, this movie ended up being a Frankenstein of new footage involving actor Eric Freeman and old footage from the first movie. It's one of the messiest sequels you'll ever see, but it doesn't mean it's not a fun time. We're only a few seconds into this movie and already the soundtrack feels notoriously bad. The musical score in the first Silent Night Deadly Night had a good mix between genuine tragedy and horror thrills, but this one just doesn't feel good. The film starts with our antagonist, Ricky Caldwell, sitting in a mental hospital, smoking a cigarette. It was my understanding that patients in a mental hospital should not be given things that they could easily inflict damage with, and a lit cigarette is definitely going to qualify as that, but whatever. Ricky spends the intro in silence, repeatedly smoking cigarettes and staring straight at the camera like Rami Malek.
My name is Dr. Bloom. You can call me Henry, or if you would feel more comfortable, you can just call me Doc.
Fuck off, Doc.
Ricky's first line says everything about the character. He's an over-the-top potty mouth who acts like a teenager in a biker gang.
I'm not one for games, Ricky. I'm a professional.
I don't think that anyone involved in this film was a professional.
My time is very valuable.
So is mine, so you better make it worth my while when I'm watching this movie.
Well, what makes you think you can bullshit your way into my head? Like every other pencil neck piece of shit.
The writers apparently thought that jamming a bunch of naughty words into this guy's vernacular was going to make him seem more antagonizing. No, it just cries of desperation before the story has even begun.
Sit down, Ricky.
Actor Eric Freeman even finds a way to make the act of sitting down into something very melodramatic. We are in for a tour de force with this guy's performance.
I will ask the questions. You will answer them. You will talk.
Yes, I believe that's how one answers questions.
Who killed your parents?
Santa Claus.
We get the first of many flashbacks in the film, showing us footage from the first Silent Night Deadly Night. Despite this being a flashback to something that Ricky was a baby for, apparently he remembers the entire incident so vividly.
I don't know what made him stop.
What's that?
Actually, I do know what made him stop.
And those are the two statements that scare me the most.
Billy was there.
You think we should wake up Billy?
Billy told me everything.
Oh, how convenient.
We see the traumatic memory of the Santa Claus killer shooting Ricky's dad and sexually assaulting his mother.
How could you possibly remember all that?
Good question.
I was there.
A lot of flashbacks you see in this movie are going to be for incidents that Ricky was definitely not there for, so even though his answer is half-baked and nonsensical in this context, it makes even less sense later down the road.
You know, I don't like your attitude, Bloom.
I don't like your eyebrows, they have a life of their own.
My attitude is not the issue, Mr. Caldwell.
Ricky's birth name was Richard Chapman. His brother's name is Billy Chapman. How did he become a Caldwell for this film?
You in a hurry, Doc? Am I wasting your valuable time?
This film is definitely wasting mine, but your performance is keeping me intrigued.
Tell me about your stay at St. Mary's Orphanage.
It didn't exactly bring out the best in Billy.
They said your stay, not Billy's. Flashback 2 shows us Billy's stay at the orphanage, showing us the incidents that would later form his serial killer attitude as an adult. But as I warned you, Ricky was not here to see any of this, so it does not make sense.
She was naughty.
Brilliant editing.
Do you dream, Ricky?
I don't sleep.
Somehow I don't think that's physically possible.
But Billy had dreams.
Oh, here we go, back on Billy for Flashback 3.
Leave Billy alone.
More of of Billy's childhood trauma, including the time he punched Santa Claus. After briefly cutting back, we go to Flashback 4, where we see Billy working at the toy store as Santa Claus before having his mental breakdown and starting his killer rampage. And the flashbacks are sure to last long enough that we actually get to see every murder he commits in the toy store. Flashback 5 gives us the 2 murders that he commits in the random horny teenager's house. And then we even get the police mistaking the guy dressed as Santa Claus for his daughter as the killer. Why did we get this flashback? Ricky wasn't there for it, Billy wasn't there for it, it has no relevance to the story in part 2 whatsoever. It's just there to occupy running time, and it's fucking pathetic.
This is not making me happy.
It's fairly obvious where he was going.
Really? Well, maybe we're just jerking off here then.
How did masturbation come into the conversation?
If you say so.
You're good, Doc.
Is he though?
Perhaps the one actual relevant flashback we get is to when Officer Kevin Bacon gunned down deaf Santa Claus.
Billy?
Don't take another step or I'll shoot!
Billy?
Get out of it! Get away from it!
Billy!
Why would you think that was Billy? As a child, you had no idea that your brother was running around killing people dressed as Santa Claus at this point in the story. In the first film, Ricky saw Santa Claus get gunned down right in front of him and spill blood all over him, which would have no doubt contributed to his fragile mental state, so at least this makes sense.
It was old man Kelsey, the janitor.
In the first film, that Santa Claus's name was Father O'Brien, so is his name Kelsey O'Brien, or did the producers just fuck up in this movie like when they named the character Ricky Caldwell?
I don't know, but it's a bloody good question.
Then we have to sit through that long sequence of Officer Kevin Bacon searching the shelter for Killer Santa. This scene was long, slow, and predictable enough in the first film, but it was supposed to give audiences a jump scare when Billy popped out and killed him. Since it's a flashback to a movie that we've already seen, it's even more obvious this time, and just plain pathetic. And with this scene now complete, that goes to show that Silent Night Deadly Night Part 2 has included every single one of Billy's murders from the first film in the second movie. They are really desperately clawing for those slasher gimmicks. And of course the sequel had to keep the decapitated Santa shot in. This part I can forgive. I mean, it's also pathetic and arbitrary, but I fucking love that shot. Things come full circle when Billy walks in prepared to kill Mother Superior and gets gunned down, all of which Ricky was there to witness. And halfway through this shot, it cuts to a reshot version of the final line from the first movie.
Naughty. Very naughty.
And that's where the stock footage ends, 40 minutes into the film. That's just under half of the entire film. This movie cannot in good faith actually call itself Silent Night Deadly Night Part 2. At best, it can call itself Silent Night Deadly Night 1.5, like The Lion King 1.5. The tape stops recording at the end of the stock footage, almost symbolic of the fact that a new narrative has begun.
They closed the orphanage after that.
But kindly Sister Mary was able to find me a family. The Rosenbergs.
Okay, so you were born a Chapman, adopted into a Rosenberg family, and somehow ended up with the name Caldwell. We get some more flashbacks, but at least it's to entirely new footage this time. We see that Ricky was given a relatively normal childhood, but that his apparent fear of Catholics has continued to linger. Now, children should be scared of religious figures inside the Catholic Church, but this doesn't make sense because even though Ricky did have a traumatic childhood, he didn't go through the same upbringing that his brother Billy did. He didn't appear to have been tortured by Mother Superior and abused by people in that orphanage the same way his brother had. So why he's scared of nuns is just... You know, they're just trying to make it seem like he is identical to his brother in this context, and it's just pathetic.
Mom, look! I don't know what is wrong with us. That's okay.
Probably the fact that his adoptive mother doesn't seem very cautious of his feelings right now, and the fact that she's talking shit about him to her friend right in front of him. We only get 2 scenes depicting Ricky's childhood before we flash forward to him as a 15-year-old, played by 24-year-old actor Daryl Guilbeault, who is actually 3 years older than Eric Freeman. Ricky is seen at a funeral for his adoptive father.
That hit me pretty hard.
Yes, I can tell from all the emotions in your facial expressions just how hard it hit you. Ricky goes off for a walk.
You tend to get paranoid when everyone around you gets dead.
Dialogue?
Ricky comes across a couple having a picnic.
I see something I like.
Eddie, you're such a pig.
Yeah.
Well, a real pig probably would not be self-aware like that, so... The romantic picnic quickly turns into a violent attempted sexual assault, which triggers Ricky to have flashbacks to things that he remembered seeing as a baby.
Naughty.
Oh shit, here we go obsessing over the words naughty and punish again.
The more things change, the more they stay the same.
Out of the blue, Ricky steals the guy's car and gleefully runs him over with it. Although there was no actual build-up to this, Ricky just suddenly is a killer.
Thank you.
The first film depicted a world of people that is so typically accepting of child abuse. The second film depicts a world of people so accepting of murder. I mean, I know that this guy kind of had it coming, but still, what a fucking weird world that Ricky and Billy live in.
Going too fast for you, Doc?
He's gone.
I'm right here now.
Red car. Good point.
It's really not.
The film keeps on hinting at the idea that Ricky has some traumatic association with the color red, but I don't think that actually motivated anything involving his decision to murder that guy. When Ricky turns 18, he gets a job as a busboy.
I think you'll enjoy this.
No, I don't think that's going to be happening.
Sounded like some squirrel getting his nuts squeezed.
Do you know what that sound is, Highness?
Ricky witnesses a loan shark beating someone up, so he does his duty. To its credit, this is a pretty original death scene, and arguably the second best in the film. You should already know what the best is.
Well, you didn't think
Covered a lot of ground today.
I was gonna let him get away with it.
Much more than I
Did you,
had
Doc?
anticipated.
Too many people get away with shit like that.
Well, you and the filmmakers got away with shit like this. In fact, the only reason Eric Freeman was cast in this movie is because the producers had to choose between him and a more experienced actor, but they picked Eric Freeman simply because he was more attractive. Whether or not that paid off is up to how much you like good bad movies.
Then tell me about Jennifer.
Eat shit.
Thanks, I'm trying to quit.
Now Ricky is a pseudo-greaser who gets his bike knocked over in the most obviously fake way. He meets a girl named Jennifer who he starts dating, though their entire relationship is composed of shots of them riding around on his motorcycle and then a brief sex scene which was apparently way more graphic originally.
That was my first time. I thought it was Jennifer's too.
Well, you should have asked her then. Communication is essential in any relationship.
More death and destruction than any film ever seen before.
You like this stuff?
For the record, Jennifer is the one who picked the movie they go to see, which, as you'll find out a couple of minutes later, is a fucking slasher film. So she's not only being overly judgmental here, but she's also being very hypocritical. Also, this is very obviously not a movie theater. This is the least convincing cinema I've ever seen in any film. At the back of this room, which is not a theater, is a loud and obnoxious patron seated next to Lee Harry, the actual director of this movie.
Faggot.
Well, we know that's not true.
What did you say this movie was about?
It's about this guy who dresses up like Santa Claus and kills people.
What?
Oh, I see. Then everything is wrapped up in a neat little package.
I'm holding you up, asshole.
So now the stock footage from the first Silent Night, Deadly Night isn't being used as flashbacks, it's being used as the film within the film of the second movie.
The audacity.
Punish.
31 bucks. Merry Christmas.
In the original movie, the line was Merry fucking Christmas. I don't know why they cut the F word out of this movie, especially considering that in the film so far, there's already been way more swearing than in the entirety of Silent Night, Deadly Night. I don't know what the producers were thinking.
This movie's so bogus.
I don't understand. Is this you being meta?
Never mind the fact that everyone else in the movie's dead.
We're 2 minutes into the movie, how can everyone be dead yet?
Next thing you know... Shh. Naughty.
Ricky kills the patron and then comes back to his seat.
Let's get out of here.
No. I'm beginning to like this picture.
Well, I'm glad someone's liking it. Later, while out walking, the two come across Jennifer's ex-boyfriend Chip. They could have easily seen him blocks away, and Jennifer could have taken them in another direction to avoid this encounter, but somehow it never occurs to her. He acts like an asshole, then Ricky steps in.
That's enough. Oh, it speaks. I said, that's enough.
Yes, that is enough. We're over an hour into the movie at this point, and it hasn't gone anywhere.
Listen, bud. That's what she said when I fucked her brains out. Backseat of old Red here.
Ricky snaps and kills Chip with a car battery, which Jennifer doesn't prove very fond of.
Are you out of your mind?
Very naughty.
You killed him!
Really?
Punishment is good.
I hate you, Ricky.
Punishment is absolute.
More flashbacks to things that Ricky was not there for.
Punish!
To dust off an old chestnut.
It begins!
Uh-oh.
I've never heard anyone swallow louder in a film that was not an adult movie. Ricky chokes Jennifer to death for whatever reason. I'm assuming it's for the sin of having slept with her ex-boyfriend, which is hypocritical considering that they've slept together. Then a police officer comes by.
Let's be real civilized about this. Okay.
Ricky easily kills the police officer. Now, this cop hasn't done anything naughty on screen, but we know for a fact that he has definitely shot several African Americans in his time, so this is justified. Then Ricky goes on a rampage, beginning by shooting some rando on the street. Now, up until this point, there has been some way of understanding Ricky's twisted motivations for murdering people, but this is where the film loses face. There is no conceivable reason why Ricky should have murdered this guy. He did not do anything naughty, nothing that deserves punishment. He was just out in the street walking. So, Ricky literally is killing for the sake of killing right now. That's the entire opposite of the point from the first movie. And here comes the most iconic moment.
garbage day!
Huh? No!
I have seen this clip so many times that it has lost all meaning to me. So when I stop and analyze it, that's when I remember just how fucking wonderful this moment is. Why did he shout garbage day? Why did Ricky kill someone for just taking his garbage out? Why did he swing a loaded gun around on his finger and then blow smoke when there was no more smoke? This scene makes so little sense that it's just wonderful. This is the scene that gives the movie a deserved legacy. A little girl who apparently hasn't heard any of the gunshots rides on in.
Excuse me, mister.
That's okay.
Ricky should probably have more motivation to kill her than the last two people that he killed. I mean, she carelessly rode her tricycle into a grown man. But of course the entire reason this scene is here is to reflect the scene from the first movie where Billy let a little girl go. Then we get a ridiculous car crash scene.
Bingo!
The car does a full flip and then just explodes out of the blue. Michael Bay must just love this scene. A blockade of police officers put an end to Ricky's rampage.
Suicide is badass.
Don't do it! No! It's not worth it! Don't be a fool! Don't do it! Don't kill yourself! No more bullets.
Ah, that's a shame.
But hey, that's life.
That's life.
Ricky strangles his doctor to death with the audio tape and then inexplicably escapes the mental hospital before killing a charity worker and stealing his Santa Claus outfit. But why did this guy deserve to die? He wasn't being naughty, he was helping people. My only guess is that maybe his charity was the Salvation Army, which we know discriminates against the LGBTQI crowd. Mother Superior pops up, played by a different actress and wearing some pretty simplistic prosthetics reflecting that she had a stroke. She also lives at apartment number 666, which I get as a joke.
Punish!
Mother Superior!
Jesus Christ, this is like if Dennis the Menace became a serial killer dressed as Santa Claus.
Let me in.
Let me in! Let me in!
We're meant to be afraid of the killer at this point, but it's impossible to do anything other than laugh at him.
I love a chase!
Mother Superior falls down the stairs, and despite being an old woman who had a stroke, she manages to lift herself up into another wheelchair. And then she goes and arms herself with a knife.
You come and face me.
What do you think he's been trying to do this whole time?
You are weak, just like your brother.
You're really gonna say that when you're wheelchair bound and half your face looks like an infected lung?
Take your punishment.
No more punishment.
You are being very, very naughty.
In case you're wondering if it's possible for him to say a line back to her that's actually worse than that,
Naughty this!
you bet it's possible. The police arrive and find her decapitated before shooting at Ricky. He's easily able to take 2 bullets before a shotgun knocks him out a window.
He's gone, sister. It's over.
Nothing is over! Nothing! You just don't turn it off!
It's definitely not over. There are 3 more sequels to this movie, which each depart from the idea of the first movie more and more. But until we get there, is Silent Night Deadly Night Part 2 a good film?
No.
What an experience this movie was. You cannot consider this to be an objectively good movie when the first 40 minutes are almost entirely stock footage, but there are certainly some fun to be had with the rest of the film. The first Silent Night Deadly Night had such a sincerity to it. It wanted to be a genuine tragedy, a character study. Part 2 just aims to exploit that and tack on a new story which does the opposite, exploiting all the gimmicks of the slasher genre without any of the ambition of the first movie. And in its own way, that actually elevates the movie. Silent Night Deadly Night Part 2 is fucking terrible, but the campiness, the unintentional comedy, the sheer ridiculousness of this movie makes it a hilarious experience. And since there wasn't any of that campy fun in the first movie, that's the value that you get from the second. Ricky has such a rich personality in this movie. All his lines are so ridiculously over the top thanks to Eric Freeman's performance. His hammy line delivery is matched only by his eyebrows, which move up and down a total of 130 times throughout the film, and he carries Silent Night Deadly Night Part 2 firmly into unintentional comedy territory. While the cast of the first movie fell flat, Eric Freeman's performance is a wonderful attribute to this film. If the entire movie was composed of Eric Freeman going around on a rampage acting over the top, it would be a way better movie as a good bad experience. Unfortunately, since so much of it is stock footage from the first movie, that's the major down point. I really wish we got more out of Eric Freeman. That would have been wonderful. According to interviews, Eric Freeman didn't actually have much communication with director Lee Harry on the set of this movie and somehow got the idea in his head that he was making a comedy horror. That explains things perfectly. And even though it's not the result that the filmmakers would have wanted, it's so wonderful that this is what happened. Nobody on the set of this movie told him to tone it down, which says everything about the direction of the movie, but I don't think audiences are particularly unhappy about that. Silent Night Deadly Night is a mediocre horror film which is above average as a slasher film, but Silent Night Deadly Night Part 2 is a hilarious campy cult classic which offers more entertainment value than the first movie, at least for the duration of the film that's not literally being the first movie. You do have to wade through a lot of stock footage to get there, but once you get there, it is a rewarding mess of a film. Nonetheless, if you try to analyze this film objectively, Silent Night Deadly Night Part 2 completely collapses. Ricky never had anywhere near the same trauma as Billy. He could not have had a physical memory of nearly anything he talks about in his flashbacks. He doesn't have any actual motivations for killing many of his victims, he just kills them. And we're never told of what happens to Ricky's adoptive family after his adoptive father's funeral. And like I said, the musical score in this film is just bad. It is very rare that a musical score in a movie stands out to me for being terrible. The one exception I would probably say is The Legend of the Lone Ranger, but Silent Night Deadly Night Part 2 manages to do that as well. And since the musical score in the first movie was one of its best attributes, this is really sad. But nonetheless, with all the trouble this production went through, it was never destined for greatness. The fact that it has found its status as a popular cult classic of campy, unintentional horror comedy, it's just great. Silent Night Deadly Night Part 2 gets 5 garbage days out of 10. Objectively, it's a phenomenal mess of a movie which uses way too much fucking stock footage, but with the wonderful campy energy of Eric Freeman's performance and the sheer hilarity of just how messy it is, it ends up being a very enjoyable, unintentional comedy classic. And that does it for today's episode of Delightfully Devilish, you guys. If there are any movies you want to see me discuss on this show, please leave them in the comment section below. If you want to see more episodes of this show, please hit that subscribe button. Otherwise, until next time, I have been your host, Jukebox Harry. Peace.